Welcome back, movie lovers. Today we're talking about Barry Jenkins' follow-up to The Moonlight, If Beale Street Could Talk. Stay tuned.
Welcome to Popcorn Talk, featuring movie discussion, news, and interviews. Popcorn Talk. We talk movies. And now, here's Popcorn Talk's Anatomy of a Movie.
Hello, movie lovers. Welcome back to the Popcorn Talk Network. We are here doing Anatomy of a Movie for If Beale Street Could Talk. I'm your host, Marisa Serafini. Joining me, I have...
Mina, Wahab.
What's up, Mina? We're back again, covering If Beale Street Could Talk, which is Barry Jenkins' follow-up to Moonlight. I'm excited to talk about this film. It's beautiful. There's lots to talk about. To preface to everybody, before we really dive into everything, of course, we are very spoiler-rich, spoiler-heavy kind of discussion. So if you haven't watched the film, go watch it and then come back to us. And also in the description below this video, just click the PDF link and you'll have the link to our rundown and production notes that we're going to talk about throughout this discussion. Things we talk about, things we may have missed, but are also in our notes. Go check it out. It's a great way to follow along our conversation. What were your quick thoughts of this film?
Oh my god, it was like I was watching a beautiful romance unfold, but over this very dark, cruel world where there is just so much injustice with our legal system. So there was so much going on. It was beautiful. Everything from the cinematography to like the authenticity of the relationship between Tish and Fonny to the love of a mother for her son-in-law and for her daughter and for the well-being of that family. And the concept of bringing in new life into this world that's so harsh and damaged already. Mm-hmm. And so much going on. Even like the subplots of like, you know, seeing the different dynamics with the families and the different socioeconomic statuses and how religion plays a factor when it comes to judgment of premarital sex and having a baby out of wedlock. Mm-hmm. There was so much that we could like dig into and discuss, but I just want to say that this was one of my favorite movies of the year. I just thought it was so beautiful.
Yeah, you really did enjoy this because I think immediately after you watched it, you texted me. You're like, "I loved this film." I'm like, "Great, we're talking about it."
Yeah.
I actually enjoyed this film for the most part. Barry Jenkins, I find him a very, very slow-paced type of director, and you see it in Moonlight, and you see it also in this film. And he's really, the only work of Barry Jenkins that I've seen is Moonlight and this film. So I really don't have a lot of other stuff of his to compare it to. I really only have Moonlight. Mm-hmm. But I know he has a great visual direction. And he takes his moment to build up emotional beats within a conversation, just within the storytelling of itself. It's like a lot of things are slowly built to have an earned moment of result at the end. And you see it in this film. Mm-hmm. And so let's get a little bit just into the production. So this is actually based on an actual book by James Baldwin. And it's about the whole Beale Street and Harlem location, the Harlem environment. And actually, Beale Street is actually a street in downtown Memphis, Tennessee, mm-hmm. which was like the start of an significant in the history of music and blues and like blues music and all that. So we see it at the beginning of the film, just like this credit of what Beale Street actually is. Mm-hmm. But it kind of sets up the movie that is supposed to be like a beautiful historic type of feel that we get throughout the entire film. But the story takes place in Harlem, which kind of threw me off a little bit when they're talking about blues in a different state, mm-hmm. and we're following a New York type of storyline.
Right.
Did that confuse you? Maybe I was the only one confused.
I didn't pick up on that actually when I watched it. I was just like, oh, this is a beautiful story. Like, I felt like they did go into different enclaves in New York because we have the like, you know, the part where they're speaking Spanish to the people who are Dominican, and mm-hmm. then they have the part where they're just like in different neighborhoods. But for the most part, I felt like it centered in a world of flashbacks of trying to establish the dynamic between Tish and Fonny. And that way we have like more sympathy or empathy for Fonny and his situation in the present day. I don't know. I didn't pick up on the different locations part, or jumping from Beale Street to Harlem and how that was different. I didn't notice that.
I think it maybe just confused me personally because I've never been to Harlem and I've never been to New York in general. I know. I'm working on it. But so, like, I am not familiar with the location, with the culture, with how the vibe is of New York, especially back in that time. So it was a little foreign to me, but watching this film, I connected more to the human storylines compared to what was actually happening within the political and social economics of that actual time period. But and so it's based on the book by James Baldwin, and Barry Jenkins actually started writing, like, adapting the screenplay before he actually got the rights to the film. But he believed in it so much, and he actually did finally get the rights, and then just kind of took off from there. So Barry Jenkins, he did the writing and so the screenwriting and the directing of this. But for the writing and the storytelling, what were your thoughts of Barry in taking on such a humanistic type of storyline?
I think that just like on the basis of sex, I feel like this is also something that will be timeless. And I know that there were so many critics who did not like the movie, who said that it was too slow-paced, too many close-ups. What's going on here? It's just they couldn't get through it. But for me, I saw that as so important to this whole idea of, like, getting justice, because he's focusing so much on the characters. The close-ups are really giving us an understanding of what they're going through, how they feel. And I think the slow pace is necessary to feel the frustration of the amount of time that Fonny is just trapped in this world where he has no power, he has no say as a black man in America at this time. He has to have other people vouch for him, and he knows that ultimately it was kind of a sad ending where he kind of has to play this settlement game of, okay, I know I didn't do it, but what is the best case scenario for me and my new kid on the way? How am I going to handle this? I just think everything with the way Barry Jenkins directed this and wrote it with the dialogue was so powerful. I'm not surprised Regina King got a nomination for this and a Golden Globe win.
Supporting actress. If you think about it, the storyline for this film is very simple. It's kind of ridiculously simple. It's not like a million people are playing a part. We really just see this core family and this young couple, and the man is falsely accused of rape.
It's like To Kill a Mockingbird.
Exactly, like, and sent to prison, and the family is just working and hustling to try to get him out.
Yeah,
and that's and there's a child on the way, but that's basically the crux of the entire storyline. So it's not confusing, it's not hard to follow, but what we're following throughout this film is just how everyone is dealing with the situation and how everyone works and, like, loves each other so much just for, like, moments of happiness or moments of encouragement, like, we're getting you out, we're hiring lawyers, we're raising more money to get more lawyers to fight for you, and all that. And it's like we just see this family throughout the slow build of a storyline unfolding in front of us.
And we also see different worlds. We don't only see the world of a black man, we see the world of a black woman, we see the world of a Puerto Rican woman who is an immigrant, we see the world of a white male rising lawyer who is in this world where he's surrounded by just, you have, like, such a powerful scene where it's just white man after white man in this, like, room, and they're lawyers, and it's like, wow, like, these are the people who are determining my life. So many powerful scenes. We see so many different worlds. It's not just one world. We see different classes. We see different races, different genders, different socioeconomic status.
Yeah, different moral values,
too.
Different
religions.
Religious values.
Yeah.
A lot of different things that are packed into this 2-hour movie. But I want to talk more about the family relations first. So we see the different opposing views between Tish's family and Fonny's family. First, what were your ideas of Fonny's family and the mother and the sisters?
Wow.
This was near the beginning of the film.
Yeah.
Just like, this is how we enter the film, really.
The initial arrival of the mother and her sisters, you just notice immediately from the dress, from the posturing, from the dialogue, how these people, though they are the same race and have usually been categorized in the same way by not only society but also by film in general, and how film portrays people in this community, how they come from two vastly different worlds. Even though they're part of the same like racial group, they come from two vastly different worlds, and how religion and socioeconomic status can create this like system of hierarchy within your own race, where it can create such a sharp divide, where instead of coming together because of the birth of a new child who is so innocent and has nothing to do with all the bad and evil in this world, you're going to create a wedge because of your religious beliefs, because you believe that a child born out of wedlock is a bastard, and you know, because you disagree with the morality of it. And it makes it extra powerful when we have a protagonist, Tish, who is so sweet and mild-mannered and is essentially an angel. So this is juxtaposed with someone who is so harsh, you know, so set in their ways, but we still see Tish put up a fight. And I love that. I love that she's not just this one-dimensional, sweet little, oh, I'm just going to take everything they say and internalize it. No, I'm going to speak up and say this is not okay. I loved how her sister came to her defense. There were parts that I just laughed out loud. It was good. I loved it, Marisa.
No, it was great. And I love how excited you're getting, because you're talking about juxtaposition, because we see the actual first announcement, the initial announcement with Tish's immediate family. And the way that the pacing, they built it up, with like, oh, what, this could go south. But it went so far north, and like they were so happy, so on board, so supporting. Like when it came to the mother and the sister and the father, he was like, yes, this is the best thing ever. And then to immediately follow up 10 minutes later, this Fonny side, which is so cruel and so harsh and so brash to what we just saw, which was like a family that supported, like fully supported, to a family that fully like denies this and doesn't even like think it could be true. It's so hard to see conflicting opinions so immediately. And I think that was great in the juxtaposing. Is like, so it builds for the audience that we know which side we should root for.
Yeah.
Obviously Tish's family.
And also, what are you going to do? It's not like she's going to get an abortion. Like, she's choosing to have this baby. I mean,
it's the sign of the times back then.
Are you just gonna like say, like, you have to make the best out of the cards that you're being dealt, and not necessarily see it as a mistake, but oh, we're blessed with the gift of life. What are we gonna do with that life? What kind of world do we want our child to enter into?
We're drinking to the gift of life.
Yeah.
And then
even Regina King, like the way she acted, she was so supportive. It was beautiful, and that scene, it was powerful, it was funny, there were comedic elements, and then you also see the way the times were with, you know, this woman's husband just slapping her because he doesn't agree with her, and her sister's freaking out. Yeah, to just stop her. And that's not okay either, but at least I didn't empathize with her, but it was so interesting to see that, like, physical violence from someone who was so supportive of new life. It just showed, like, oh, but these are the times. Like, this is how men treated women back then. It was okay to slap your wife back then. No one said anything. You don't speak back.
But I think it's also great on the actress for just the audience reactions. Like, this is such a terrible woman, or, like, we disagree with her. I'd hope for the majority of us disagree with her. Just the way she was like explaining, like, bastard, you like X, Y, and Z, and all these things. Just she was so strong-willed and opinionated, where it bothered everyone, and it got to the point, and it escalated to the point where the husband had to slap her just to stop her from talking. But us as the audience, we got to that moment too. It's like, there's nothing else that we just wanted to slap her too. And the husband did it for us.
And I think we didn't empathize, but I know, like, through my mind, I was like, wow, like, this is not okay. But you can't empathize with a woman like that. It's like, but I do in some ways understand that when you are that religious and this is your way of life, you have formed your entire identity around that anything that doesn't adhere to that is sin. So how can you support a life of sin when this is what you think is morality? So I get that, but there's a way to handle it with class, with etiquette, with
dignity.
Yeah, with dignity, with respect. She had no respect for that poor girl.
No. On the flip side, what do you think of Tish's mother? Regina King playing Sharon Rivers.
Such a powerful performance.
Amazing mother.
There's so much nuance in her performance where she can go from being this super strong, she's strong throughout, but she can go from being very aggressive and loud about it to very calm and collected in the way she communicates and explains her thoughts. But ultimately, you're just wow, this is a great mother. She just wants the best for her kid and for her son-in-law. She is willing to go above and beyond, travel to Puerto Rico for her son-in-law. What is Fonny's mom doing?
Nothing.
Just wallowing,
cursing her
painting
own son.
Fonny as a horrible person, painting Tish as the person who ruined her son's life. Get over yourself, woman. Mm-hmm. I was simultaneously entertained and enraged.
Right. And I think that's just the power of the performances, too, because, it's rightfully so Regina King got nominated because she did play such an amazing role in this film as a mother, as an actress, because we see these scenes and moments with Sharon where she's supportive of Tish and the baby, but then when she's alone trying to put on her wig and just looking at herself in the mirror for a full 3 minutes, it's you take those real time moments where she is vulnerable. She's worried about the results that could happen if going to Puerto Rico is a good thing. Facing this potential accuser.
Yeah. At first I was what's she doing? Is she going on a date? What's happening? And
Right.
I was what? And then I was wow, this moment is so important because it shows her indecisiveness, how everything is counting on this one moment and every little move is a chess game. It could ruin it all. Mm-hmm. And just her putting it on, taking it off. I felt that was her battle with how authentic should I be versus how much am I putting my best foot forward and looking decent. So it's,
how real can it be in this moment?
Yeah.
And should I approach her looking more put together or looking more realistic?
Yeah.
In the fact of woman to woman.
Would that have made a difference, you think?
No, I don't think so, because just I want to know your thoughts of the whole just interaction with the accuser, who we get the actual accuser down in Puerto Rico.
So it starts off with Regina King speaking to the father first and trying to get permission and access to the daughter. Mm-hmm. And then when she finally meets the daughter, I felt you don't touch a rape victim 10 times. Don't.
It wasn't really 10, but it was enough to physically set her off.
Just know that this is someone who has gone through intense trauma, and I understand you're coming at this with everything is relying on this one interaction, but you saw this internal struggle with her character. You saw that she was how much do I push? How much don't I push? And how she's talking to her and saying, honey, please listen. You do not know that this man did this. I believe you when you say you were raped, but you were in the dark. You didn't get a good look at his face. You can't know for certain that it's him. And she replies, how are you so certain that it's not? And she just knows. She's I've known him since he was this little. He would never do that. You saw a lineup of people given to you by police officers, and you chose him, but you chose him incorrectly. And I know this is hard for you, but this is this man's life. Mm-hmm. This is his life on the line. And then she touches her or tries to reason with her, and this lady she can't. She has an emotional breakdown, mental breakdown, is triggered, starts screaming. Her mother or grandmother comes in and pulls her and starts saying things in Spanish, oh, what a horrible person.
Right.
And then we just see this extremely powerful performance from Regina King, crying and being so upset and just what do I do with myself now? And that was an incredible it was an incredible performance, for her to struggle so much and go through great lengths knowing that there was a risk that it wouldn't pan out, and still trying to calculate her every move and doing it from the heart. I felt it. I didn't feel in performance. It felt this is real.
Yeah, and I completely agree, because we see Sharon go out of the way, go all the way to Puerto Rico, because this is the make or break moment where this could exonerate Fonny. This could be the moment where he can finally get his freedom back. And it's not. It goes so south, and it doesn't help. And she at her breakdown after, the woman goes away, her breakdown, because she realizes she kind of failed in that way. It was like this was supposed to be the moment that was supposed to free Fonny, and there's nothing else she can do. She's literally defeatless. Yeah. And it's just to the point where that she tried so hard and she failed. Mm-hmm. And as just like a person who went the extra mile just to face defeat is really upsetting, just in that human sense. But you applaud her for what she tried to do. Mm-hmm. And unfortunately, it still doesn't work for Fonny's case because he's still in prison.
Right.
And I think that was one of the more frustrating things near the end of the film. Not to completely jump ahead, but at the end of the film, where we see he's still in prison, he never got free.
Yeah.
It just left you so, maybe for me, but it left me so unsatisfied at the end because he didn't get redeemed.
Yes, and it points out to this larger problem of systemic injustice that persists in this country. And, like, you're taking this slice of life and the specific instance and will there be justice? And as the viewer, you're like, of course there has to be, because if someone is innocent, they're innocent, and it'll come to light. And now we realize so many people are incarcerated for either things they didn't do or something really petty because of the 3 strikes rule, and they just spend life in prison as a result. But that's all being remedied now with the STEP Act. So thankfully our country is moving in the right direction.
Hopefully in the right direction. I want to talk more now about the actual main love relationship that we see. We see Tish and Fonny. What were your thoughts of both Kiki Lane, who played Tish, and Stefan James, who portrayed Fonny, but like the relationship that we're following throughout this entire film?
Super authentic. It was like one of the most beautiful portrayals of romantic love I have ever seen. Everything. There was so much respect there. There was so much loyalty, so much dedication, and you feel it in every single scene. You know that Tish would die for her man and he would do the same. Mm-hmm. And we don't see that a lot. We usually see either a male savior or someone needing to be rescued, but this was, no, I will fight for you and I know you will fight for me. And we see him even tell Tish, I don't need you to fight for me. I know how much you love me. Please don't do that ever again. And it's not coming from this sense of like toxic masculinity. It's coming from, I don't want anything to ever happen to you. I love you so much. You know how our world is, especially against black people, against black men, black women. I don't want you to ever put yourself in this position. Don't ever do that to me again. So we see the loyalty, we see the love, every scene, even the sex scene, the amount of respect and beauty in that sex scene.
He doesn't want to hurt her.
He is so gentle, and it's their first time. It's her first time having sex, and he asks her, like, he tells her, like, oh, like, I just want you to know that I love you so much, and like I hope you trust me, and just everything that points out to consent. Mm-hmm. Making sure, checking in, and it is such a beautiful union of their love.
Yeah, and I do love that we do see their actual progression throughout the entire film with the help of flashbacks. And I know there are a lot of television shows and movies where like flashbacks can be like too overbearing or too heavy-handed, but I think the flashbacks were done very well in this film because you do see that slow progression of, we understand who Fonny is, mm-hmm. and understand how such a nice guy that he is. There is no possible way he could rape this poor victim. So we just know that is not in his character because the flashbacks built him up as such a great guy. Mm-hmm. How he's so far in love with Tish, and like going to the whole scene where they're trying to get an apartment for themselves, and he's just visualizing everything. Dave Franco.
Nice little cameo there.
But it's also like to show that there are other good people in the world. Like, yes, he had an injustice against himself, who someone falsely accused of, but there are other good people out there who just like, I don't care about your gender, your race, your beliefs. It's like, I just care if you're like truly in love and if you're a good person.
And pay the rent, please.
And and Fonny was a good person. We
Yeah.
know that he was. And he's like, you two are in love and we'll make it. Mm-hmm. And he's like, I just want to be a part of that. And like, I think it's just, that's a positive, like, little note that we're all like, okay, there are good people in the world who don't care, who don't just see just black or what have you. And so it was a good cameo by Dave Franco, but also just the message that shows that Fonny is like just such a good person and such an injustice against him.
And I think this was even more so established by using the very powerful flashback of them as children. So they've known each other since they were little kids. And there's this scene where they're talking about, you know, you have the voiceover from Tish, and she's saying how, you know, we used to take baths together and it was never sexual. A body was just a body, and it was such a beautiful moment of like friendship and closeness. And it wasn't until that moment on the subway where they're older where you kind of see them staring at each other, and that's the romantic connection there. But they've had such a solid friendship foundation and platonic love that it was able to blossom into something more later in life.
Yeah, now it transcends platonic. And I did love that moment too, because you do see that progression of they started off as just like childhood friends to the point where now they're actually in love with each other and respect each other and see each other for more than what they used to be. Mm-hmm. And I think that's just like that natural progression of an actual relationship.
What I don't understand, by the way, is how are they able to hang out so frequently as kids when Fonny's mother hated the family? Or did this hate start way after? Because it seems like a lot of her judgment comes from the varying socioeconomic statuses and the fact that they are like deemed like lower class than these high class, super rich, you know.
I don't know. That's a good question.
Fonny side of the family.
Maybe that's covered more in the books. Unfortunately, both of us have not read the book, so maybe they do cover the Fonny's mother just a little bit and her viewpoint. But we do see that like the sisters and the mother were already judgmental by the time we see them towards Tish.
Yeah.
And I think maybe as kids it's more forgivable because they're just kids, they're innocent, so it's okay to let them. And we see the fathers are actually good friends.
That's what I love too, and it was super confusing. I was like, how are the men getting along and the women just hate each other?
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe this mother was way more catty. So I'd like to think maybe the fathers had a play in like always having their kids play along with each other too, which is good because then I feel like if the parents at some point did not get along, there would be no way that Fonny and Tish would actually grow up together. So then I think it was maybe the father's involvement that they are such good friends, that the fathers are, that it allowed
them to have that
still be together
relationship.
Yeah. So I look towards the men for that.
Yeah.
So good on the fathers.
Yeah.
The fathers were great, especially them hustling to get money. Yes. Unfortunately, it was illegal, but they were hustling super hard because that's how much they believe Fonny was also innocent.
And I almost, like, not that I would ever condone doing anything illegal, but I almost was like, I don't even care or have any sort of judgment because they have been so screwed over by the system that they're just trying to claim what's theirs and like basically play in this corrupt game where, oh, I'm going to do something corrupt to free my son from corruption. Just that, like, weird, I guess, way of thinking.
Yeah, it's very ironic where they're like, the system didn't work for our
advantage, so we're gonna just do what the system's doing to us. Yeah,
it's like more so they work the system too.
Yeah, like good for them. Like I don't even.
They sold hot items.
No remorse. I don't feel the slightest bit of like this judgment or upset at it.
And like usually I'm against that, but what I know what they were doing it for. And
well, else because they have done
the I guess like the sum is greater than its parts in that sense. But
and it's so funny how that money, that dirty money, is going to feeding a lawyer to like actually find a way to like defeat the legal system or use the legal system to their advantage to free Fonny. It's just how circular everything is, how interconnected everything is.
They're literally working the system. I feel like our last 3 movies have really been political.
They really have.
But it's okay because that's why we're talking about them. I want to now know your thoughts of Brian Tyree Henry, who played his friend Daniel, who was just released out of prison. And there's that whole 12-minute dialogue scene of just getting into his mindset and how much prison like affects a black man.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts?
I do want to say that there were parts of the scene that were super powerful and necessary to drive the plot forward, because it was told in this flashback sense of Fonny's first foray into learning about injustice against black men, especially when it comes to someone who's so close to him, who's one of his best friends. So we see that, but I felt like the 12 minutes was way too long. It was the only part of the movie where I was like, I can't focus anymore. This is too long. It's like getting out of hand. Like, no, it could have been condensed way shorter. And I think if it was condensed, it would have had a more powerful punch to it. But it was just drawn out. And I was like, why am I watching 12 minutes worth of this? You could have told me this in 5 minutes.
5 minutes.
Yeah.
I completely agree. This was the moment I'm like, how long have they been talking for? Like,
Yeah.
it did take me out. It was too long that it took me out.
It felt like a play.
A little bit.
It didn't feel like a movie at that point.
But also, it was like good in two ways, because Daniel, who now has implanted the seed within Fonny, like, prison is such a bad place, especially for him. Now he's stuck in prison. This is what I'm facing. This is like, I know going to prison, I'm going to be like treated unfairly against the guards. It's like prison is his own like mind.
Yeah.
Mind is a prison.
And he was just like, oh, they're dogs. You don't know how they act. Like, they just have no, like, humanity.
It just builds this unlikable situation that he now has to face. Like, he's already warned in that sense. But also, Barry Jenkins mentioned why he chose the scene to play out for so long. He says, whether you're good, so like, say you're in a regular conversation, you start small talk, like, how you doing? And someone's like, good. Whether you're good or not, like, you spend more time with the actual person, eventually they'll start opening up. Like he says, but if you're together in a window of time, and if you talk long enough, maybe over a cigarette or maybe over a beer, which he had several beers, slowly I'm good will reveal itself for what it really is. So it's like, you know how people always have the automatic response, like, yeah, I'm good.
Good.
But really, like, they're having the most crap day.
Because he's going to be like, honestly, I'm having the worst week of my life, and this happened. Like, no, just against social norms. But I hope that can change.
Right. So that's why he made this particular scene longer, because slowly you realize he's not good. Like, he was dealing with the post-traumatic stress, basically, of what his life was in prison.
Yeah. And the fact that you have to settle on something even when you know your own innocence. It's almost like it feels like the Shawshank Redemption all over again, where your path to redemption is guilty. Or no, your path to redemption is literally innocent to guilty because of what you do when you're labeled as like as someone who is just in that system, to getting redemption again. So you're taking people who are good and doing this to them and ruining their lives.
Yep.
I didn't like that progression from basically innocence to guilt.
Yeah. And unfortunately, the system now, it's guilty until proven innocent. It should be the other way around.
Yeah.
And in this situation, it was like, you're guilty, especially with the use of a flashback. The whole scenario in the supermarket where they had that bad encounter with a white male police officer. Which
powerful.
Now had it in for Fonny because he just rubbed him the wrong way.
That was a really great cameo performance of someone just coming in for such a short time. And that's what when I say Barry Jenkins is a great director and his use of close-ups is super helpful. I love that the shot just zoomed in. Like, it was such an extreme close-up of the police officer's face, and you see his scowl, you see the animosity in his face, you see the vitriol, and it's just so much hatred and evil and racism in that moment. And then you see the look of Fonny's face, and it's another extreme close-up, and it's just this head-to-head scene where you're like, oh, it's about to go down, so much tension, and to know that their paths really did cross again. Wow.
Yeah, and it worked against Fonny because the first encounter did not go smoothly, where he now unfortunately used that against Fonny. He's like, yep, because now he just had a personal vendetta against him.
Yeah.
And now Fonny's facing like life in prison.
The whole explanation Tish had about how things don't add up, because if this happened on this street and you live on Beale Street, and there's no way, if this is your beat, like that was really helpful for me to know. Oh, officers have beats. Oh yeah, because he's only overseeing this area, so he had to go out of his way to prove this guy guilty because of a past vendetta. Wow, our system is effed.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
It really is. And I liked how they did place, because, again, I've never been to New York, but they did place, like, it would take 5 minutes to get here. It would take 10 minutes to get here. So they actually gave us the actual spectrum and the view of, like, real-time, like, to put it into scale of, like,
Right.
from point A to point B, it is physically impossible for Fonny to have done this to achieve, to rape this woman.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, I now understand. Again, just in practicality's sake, it wouldn't work either. And I do like how they explain that as well. A little bit about the production and shot. What were your thoughts of how the overall look of this film?
I thought it was beautiful. I thought, like, everything, the way the space was used, the way that we really get a feel for what New York is like at that time, the way we see different areas of, like, what I stated earlier of, like, oh, okay, like, here he is speaking Spanish, and, oh, they're in the apartment, and it's so, there's so much light, and it's so nice, and he makes the comment of, oh, when you wake up in the morning, I want to see the beautiful sunlight shine on your face and show me that like luminous face, like everything, like you would see a lot of dark and then a lot of light where there were times of hope. So I thought everything about the production value was great.
I completely agree, and because it is like 1970s type of storyline, they use a lot of photographs from Gordon Parks, Jack Garofalo, and Paul Fusco. They helped show like the 60s and 70s back in New York at the time. So they focus on actual streets of New York, building architectures, color choices that they use, because there are some scenes where it's bluish, purplish, like this particular background behind us. If you are listening on iTunes, definitely check us out on YouTube. The different neon colors that were in certain scenes, but also when it came to like the lovemaking scenes, it was orange and soft and yellow. So like
golden,
and the different color schemes per different emotions in different situations. And I really visually, the production cinematography was fantastic. And I gotta give it credit, because I remember our Moonlight discussion. I remember saying the cinematography was so in my personal, like, I didn't like the cinematography in Moonlight because it was handheld, it was harsh lighting, things were overblown, things like it looked gritty, and this one like looked beautiful. And then I definitely think Moonlight helped Barry Jenkins get more money and higher production value for this film.
Yeah.
And it definitely showed.
Because when you have a movie that wins Best Picture, of course you're going to be taken more seriously.
Like, all right, here's
the
more
next
money.
2 years, yeah.
Film a movie that's more pretty.
Yeah. And the music, too. Wow. The
Yeah.
music added so much to everything. It was so beautiful, and like it really set the tone of romance and beauty that I haven't seen in a while.
Yeah.
Did this get nominated for Best Picture?
It did not get nominated
It
for
did
Best
not?
Picture,
Okay,
but
that's
it
very
did get
disappointing.
nominated for Best Original Music Score by Nicholas Britell, who also did the composing for Moonlight.
Okay, yeah.
So,
and he
yes.
also did Vice, I believe. I think it was one of the. It's a movie right now that's out that he has songs, and I believe it's Vice.
Yeah, so speaking of Academy Awards, so this movie only garnered 3 Academy Award nominations. Regina King for Best Supporting Actress, who also won Golden Globe for this, original music score, and adapted screenplay.
I think it should also have directing, 100%. Directing and cinematography should have been clear-cut nominations. I don't even know how that did not happen. It was the most beautiful directing I've seen in a while.
Yeah, I'm very surprised too, because Moonlight had so many nominations in those categories, and this one only got 3.
Yeah.
But it's enough award nominations for us to talk about it. I was like, this is the first movie, I believe, that got Best supporting actress nomination, but not for Best Picture. Mm-hmm. So
it kind of
interesting.
I don't want to throw shade at Green Book because I really like Green Book, but it really surprises me that Green Book would win a Golden Globe for Best Picture, but this wouldn't even be nominated for Best Picture, because I feel like the way that this story portrays race is way more like nuanced, where it's not just praising a white man for who is ignorant for befriending a black man and then changing his views on race. This is so much more complex and nuanced, where it talks about systemic injustice, and it shows black love, and it shows the differences between people in the black community instead of just painting them with one paintbrush.
Right. And
so
it shows
how
a
did this
loving
not get
family.
nominated for Best Picture? Like, that's so upsetting.
Beyond me. It's another movie snub, or like an
Yes.
Academy Award snubs,
It really
and we've been
is.
talking about that too. But like it did get some Academy Award nominations and snubbed for others. Box office, it is a very, very limited film. Only a few people saw it. As of February 3rd, it has only made about a little over 13 million. So not a lot of people are seeing this film. Basically,
Budget was $12 million though.
Yeah.
So it made $1 million, which is nothing. But
also the audience that saw this film is very limited. Mm-hmm. So then I think that's also works against them in the nominations, because the rest of the country hasn't seen this film yet.
it was very hard for me to even find showtimes to go see this movie.
Yeah, I saw
I
this
was
movie,
like scrambling to find showtimes.
Yeah, I saw it like 2 weeks ago. It's like I had to see it back when it was actually released for us here in Los Angeles. Mm-hmm. It is a very limited movie, so, and I think that's why not a lot of people are talking about it as much as they should.
That's how Moonlight was as well, though. Even
Yeah.
when it was nominated for Best Picture, it was nowhere to be found in the movie theaters, at least by me.
Yeah, Phil and I had to go see one of the last screenings of it, like on literally the last day it was in theaters. We were rushing to go see that film.
I feel like it's a shame when you have something that's such a beautiful work of art that isn't accessible to everyone.
Yeah, and it is a shame. So before we wrap out, critics wise, it's actually pretty high on Rotten Tomatoes, 95%. Mm-hmm. And Tomatometer is 69, IMDb is 7.7. But no cinema score.
Critics is 95%. Yeah.
Critics, 95.
That's
high.
how I feel though.
high.
This is like the first time the critics have really matched my feelings about a movie. Like, I feel like it was that good.
Yeah, you loved this film.
It was one of my favorites of the year. Like, honestly, I was just so moved by it. It was beautiful.
Right. Would you
Both
buy it
visually?
if it
Yeah.
was on DVD?
I feel like I would buy it because it's just a really beautiful movie.
Yeah,
I would see it again.
say it again.
Yeah. I can't say the same for other movies, but I would see this one again.
I would, like, if this was playing on HBO or something down the line, I would probably rewatch it again. I
Yeah.
don't think I would go to the theater to rewatch it, because it is a long film. It's 2 hours.
It is.
But it feels like a long film. It is very slow paced. It's Barry Jenkins.
Yeah.
So.
But I don't know. I feel like
But
you
that
kind of
shouldn't
need the
outshine
theater
the
to see it.
performance.
I feel like you need that extreme close up to really be like, oh, I'm in it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you could still see it at home, but I just think it's such a like made for the theater experience.
Yeah, and it was filmed like cinematography wise. It was the fourth film in 2018 to be shot in Univision, which is a 2-to-1 aspect ratio. The other films being Hereditary, Simple Favor, and Green Book. So that means it's actually wider aspect than a normal.
Oh, so it's more like this as opposed to
Yeah,
this.
it's more letterbox compared to a fuller screen.
Interesting.
Yeah, so that's letterbox it's more appealing visually
Oh, okay.
in a theater.
Okay, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
We got a film school
Yeah.
grad here.
Well, I did go to film school. So I highly suggest people watch it. If you are to watch this film, it is made for the movies, movie theater, which we both saw.
Yeah.
And our final thoughts about this film before we go.
A+ rating from me.
A++.
I just think If Beale Street Could Talk is beautifully done. I think it's really hard to make a movie based off of a book, because sometimes it can come across as very boring. But I think that this was something that was a very character-driven movie, even though the plot was very much like, okay, black man wrongfully accused of rape. We're going to have his family support him and see if there's a way out. Then we see his child at the very end, and it's just a very beautiful, tender moment. But there was still a part of me that's like, okay, this is like a lukewarm, like satisfying ending, but it's very realistic, and that's what I appreciate. Everything in this movie, it was never over exaggerated, it was never over romanticized. It was just a very authentic performance, an authentic story, and extremely realistic for that time period, and that's what I appreciated. Nothing was just overblown or made to be super inspirational or super moving. It just was.
Yeah, agreed. I think the performances are great. The story, very simple and easy to follow, that you want to follow these people. Like, you believe in the love and relationship. It's genuine. You believe that the family dynamic, that it was so supporting. It's like, these are things that you're rooting for everyone, really, throughout this entire film. And I'm like,
Just not the mom.
except for Fonny's
Not Fonny's mom. But we still are.
But everybody else,
to come around
like,
still.
everybody else are like so likable. You want to follow them, and I think they did a great job in character development in that sense. That these are likable people that you can follow throughout an entire film.
Tish was so likable. The two
Yeah.
main. Oh my God!
Tish
You're
was-
like, do you have a cuter, more innocent, more sweet couple?
Yeah. Nope. But Kiki Lane, I mean, she was fantastic, and she's still new to acting, so she did a great job too.
Definitely.
But thanks everyone for tuning in. In the meantime, Mina, where can people keep following you?
You guys can follow me on Instagram at Mina Makes Magic. Follow my live stories on there, and you can also visit my website at minawahab.com.
There you go, and you should definitely check out our other discussion, Moonlight, by Barry Jenkins. You can follow me everywhere at Serafini TV. You can follow all of us here at The Popcorn Talk on all social media platforms. Thanks, everyone, and we will see you next time.
From producers Maria Menounos, Kevin Undergaro, Phil Svitek, and the entire Popcorn Talk Network, we would like to thank you for tuning in. For questions or comments, be sure to visit popcorntalk.com. I'm Sir Richard Wentworth, and this has been a presentation of the Popcorn Talk Network.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of its owners or principals.